Okay. Thank you so much for that introduction. I think next what we're going to do is just open up the floor to any questions that you have for our panelists. Miranda and I will be moderating, so again, just raise your hand and we will select.
We also have, we solicited from you guys with an anonymous survey, so we do have questions there, and we can like start with one of those questions so you guys can kind of ruminate, think about what you want to ask. You can start with one of those kind of broad questions as well.
Yeah, hi. So I've compiled a list of questions from the survey that we gave to all of you guys. So we thought we would just start out with a few of those and then kind of, get the ball moving. So just like a nice broad one for the whole panel is, what does a day in your job look like?
Can I go
Typical
first?
day.
I have a funny story to tell. Yesterday, I was dealing with pee, urine. That's part of my job. So part of the programs that come under my umbrella are summer camps, our youth camps. And we have over 800 kids coming in through the museum. This is something I never thought I'd have to problems I'd have to deal with ever in my career. And we have some really little kids who are having trouble with aiming, and then there are problems all over the bathroom. And that's just an example of weirdness. Whereas on the flip side of that, then I had some yesterday, in addition to troubleshooting that with our operations team, had the opportunity to talk about and work on a proposal that we're about to submit to NASA about developing a new planetarium show. And sort of the education materials that go around it. And then what else did I do yesterday? I was in a few meetings with members of my team, just checking in with my staff, going on the floor, see what was happening in the museum. My day is incredibly varied, often part sort of strategy looking forward towards the future and part just dealing with the day-to-day things that happen in a museum setting.
Yeah, I think that I can tell you what my days are like, but it's very different for different community college educators, and I think that's one of the cool things about the job is that you can really make what you want of it and kind of make your days flexible in a whole lot of different ways. But I guess a typical day for me is that I actually prefer to have really early classes, and so I schedule my classes early on purpose, and so they start at 8 a.m. is like the latest they start, and so I probably be on campus by 7 or 6:45, 7 to prep or set up something, set up a lab or something. Teach from 8 until maybe 2:30. Then head home, pick up my son, who gets done at 3:30, pick up my other son from preschool, who gets done at 4:30. Hang out with them and don't do any work at all from 2:30 when I stopped class until probably, whenever I get them to sleep, which is up to them, unfortunately. So, and so that's probably like 9 o'clock or between 9 and 10. And then my second workday starts then. And that's when I respond to student emails, I do my grading, I do my prep, and I tend to work from 9:30, 10 till 1 a.m.-ish or something doing that. And because that's what I like, and that's the rhythm of my life, and that allows me to have the flexibility I want to really pick up my kids from school, and they don't have to, they're very privileged kids, they don't have to go to after school care. I get to go pick them up and spend time with them because that's what I want to do, and my job lets me do that. And but some of my colleagues, they'd be working more of a normal 9 to 5 schedule, doing their prep and grading during normal hours, not in the middle of the night. I told my students, you won't get any emails back from me at 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. It's not going to happen. I'm not on my computer, but you will get them from me at 1:30 a.m. or 2 a.m. Which is frankly actually when a lot of them are up anyway. And so works quite well. We go back and forth. But yeah, I have other colleagues who spend that time in other ways and do other things, and so I think it's highly variable from person to person, but for me, that's how I've structured my time, and I'm really excited that I have that flexibility to have that schedule that works for me.
I have a question for you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how many classes do you teach in a term?
So it's highly variable. So yeah, I have a handout that has some of this on there for everyone to look at as well, just some of the basic stats about what my job is like. But a full-time community college teaching load is pretty standard actually nationwide. It's about 15 contact hours per week in terms of in-class time. and then like 4 hours of office hours as well. So it's like 19 hours of student-centered time. Now that's highly variable in a lot of ways because there can be a distance learning course and then that looks very different, right? So like if it's an online course or a hybrid course, then that time is just very different. It's also very different in that, like I said, we have a lot of flexibility. Even our adjunct faculty have a decent amount of flexibility of when they teach and what they teach and what days they teach. And so that means that, you can really load your schedule in a lot of different ways. You can have super busy days for 2 days a week and have 0 class the rest of the week. That's actually very common. Many of my colleagues have that schedule. My classes don't load quite that way, so I don't have that. You can also load really differently from quarter to quarter. So like I actually do this because I'm on the quarter system and a lot of conferences and researchy things are happening in my spring quarter when all the semester folks are off. And so I actually front load a lot of my schedule. So I usually have a really heavy fall quarter where I'm teaching 21, 22 hours in class per week. And then I have super light spring. So like last spring quarter, I had class 1 day a week for 5 hours. So I think I had 5 hours a week of class. So I'm able to do that, and then it just works out with other faculty filling in the classes that I would have taught. And so yeah. But if you were to do it equally every quarter, it'd be 15 hours per week. And then, but again, even there it can be very different. You could have a crazy busy day and then have very few other days that you're actually in class, or you can spread it out for over 4 days. It seems like in a lot of institutions there's not a lot of Friday classes at community colleges because a lot of students are trying to work that day or do other things. But yeah, it could be spread out in many different ways.
It's so my schedule's not flexible at all, which is actually good for me. I'm sort of like a puppy being house trained, but forever. So I mean, it's an office job, so it really is a 9 to 5, which is really more like a 8 to 6 kind of thing, and it is DC. Which means that my house is 8 miles away. It takes me 40 minutes to get there. So it's definitely more traditional in that respect. There are, again, the folks that I work with are primarily people with science backgrounds. A lot of them have writing backgrounds, a lot of creative backgrounds. So there's some understanding around that. So sometimes we work from home. There is a fair amount of travel. Some of the work that I've been doing has been collecting data from a program that we had in Chile. So I've been there 3 times within the past 2.5 years, and we presented our findings there at a conference in Singapore. So those are definitely kind of, the days where it's a little bit different for me. But otherwise, I spend a lot of time at my computer in sort of like an introvert's dream world of analyzing spreadsheets. And then every now and then venturing out to do interviews and phone calls and meetings and that sort of thing. So it's kind of perfect for if you like people, but need that introvert time.
Oh, do you have right there.
So let me preface this by saying I work 40 hours a week, and it really is 40 hours a week. Just so that's out there. This summer I've been focusing on writing, and so I'm a real nut about like time management and the best way to manage my time and my best time. So writing is important, so I do it in the morning because that's my best intellectual time. I'm working on a couple of papers right now. There are meetings that involve, usually they're across campus with different groups, medical school people, working on a project we have a new active learning classroom building that's opening, and I'm working with the AHC, our Health Sciences Center, to prepare faculty to teach in that. I try to have coffee meetings with colleagues across campus to keep up with them. I'm like a big introvert, so having that one-on-one is the perfect opportunity for me to interact with people. I'm presenting at 3 conferences in 3 weeks, so I've been sort of piecemeal preparing my presentations for those conferences coming up, and I do most of my reading at home. That doesn't count for the 40 hours a week, just honest there, but I love reading. I try to read at least 5 articles a week. I'm in a reading club for our summer reading group, so I do reading there. And again, it varies from day to day.
So I think I'll echo what Jeff said in terms of the flexibility. Like, I coach my 6-year-old son's baseball team, and we've got practices at 4, and I can get out at 3 multiple times a week to go play children's baseball. And so really, my job is what I make of it. Like, if I just wanted to teach my classes, and that's all I wanted to do, I could probably get by with 10 hours of work a week. Fortunately, I don't do that. Maybe, unfortunately, I don't do that. So typically I wake up at 5 or so, answer some emails, go to the gym, get my kids ready for school. Usually I'm in the office by 8 or 9. And so now, because I'm half administrator, I only teach one class a quarter. So Jeff is teaching much more and working much harder than I am. But I only teach 3 hours a week. And so if I have class, I'll go to class, I have office hours. Most of my classes I've taught many times now, so like I have a micro lab that I've probably taught 20 times now. And so for the first 18 times I was unhappy with it, but I'm at the point now where it's pretty good. And so it doesn't even require a lot of prep time now. I usually have maybe 4 to 6 hours of meetings a day. So it's a lot of meeting time, but usually they're very productive meetings. The first chunk of my academic career, I thought meetings were terrible and a waste of time. I never did anything, but now that they're my meetings, they're important. But so it's a lot of that. I have a graduate student and a couple postdocs that I supervise, so meeting with them. I usually try to get in some time writing or analyzing some data or things like that. Go home for dinner, get my kids to bed, and then usually I'll probably work from 8 to 11 or so, just doing whatever it is that I have to do. But again, it's we enjoy doing this, and so no one's forcing me to go home and do that. I like what I do, and so I think as long as you find something you enjoy, oftentimes that it doesn't seem like a chore to have to do that extra work.
I have a question to follow up with Christina actually. Is in your position, are you required to do scholarship to write as you're writing? Is it like, research, or